Hi everybody, it's Alyce-Kay Ruckelshaus and I'm here for part 2 of making this bookmark. Who would have thought that a bookmark could take more than half an hour? Sorry, probably because I'm talking so much. Anyway, I took a little bit of time to kind of figure out what I'm doing here, and I think that I'm going to sew some stuff on. I want to put one of his labels from his sweaters on here, and let me get this black thread off. I don't want that sticking out there. I think I should distress it a little bit. And I'm going to leave these little threads hanging off here because one of the things that he loved about my journals was that he called them hairy because they always had all those threads sticking out. So I'm going to distress this. I'm going to use both the vintage photo and I think I'll use a little bit of gold on it too. I'm not sure if the gold will show up, but we'll see. So I don't remember what I was talking about, but yeah, he was just a really, really good man. He was Quaker, and so he wasn't used to really talking very much about his faith. For Quakers, it's usually kind of a private thing. But he loved that I talked about mine so much, and he and I talked about our faith together. And, you know, otherwise I don't think that he really talked about his faith all that much with other people. Okay, so I think I'm going to sew this on rather than gluing it. Okay, so let's get a sewing machine here. Oh, I'm almost out of thread. I'm not going to be able to sew a whole lot. Hopefully I have enough to do this project. Okay. I prefer to use zigzag. So let's do that. Oh, and I had used some thread from here, so I need to, oh goodness, it's having some problems here. Okay, I'm not sure if sewing is going to work or not, but we will try. Let me just get this thing threaded. Okay, and then you guys can see how it threads the needle itself. You have to thread the machine, but it threads the needle for you, which I really, really like. Okay, and then there we go, it's threaded. Okay, so let's sew this label on right here at the very top. And I think that I have figured out how I can put one of his pictures on. Okay. Hopefully I have enough thread to make it here. And I'm going to sew both just the top and the bottom of the tag. I don't need to sew the sides because it's pretty narrow. So, you know what I'm thinking for you guys, this would be a great project to do. You could just do it for yourself. You could do it for like your husband for a nice bookmark or something, or you can use it in one of your junk journals. But I would really hope that you'll make one for yourself and, you know, use it just to remind you of the good things in your marriage. You know, choose a verse that really fits your marriage and some of the things that are special to you as a couple, and make sure that your husband knows about that. You know, one of the things that people tend to do is not appreciate each other often enough. One thing Bill and I decided long before we got married was that you could never say I love you too much. And we probably said I love you, I don't know, at least 60 times a day, and that's no exaggeration. You know, anytime that we talked to each other, we said that we loved each other. One of the things, too, that was just really neat was that we found that we just loved marriage, both of us. And sometimes people say that about people, like, oh, well, you just love marriage, like it's a bad thing or something. We loved each other, but we loved being married to each other, and we loved marriage. You know, we loved the idea of marriage. and what it means, and the commitment to each other was just really, really important to us. And you know, we often talked about how we loved each other, but we also loved being married to each other. And I think that's, you know, there's a distinction to be made there. We loved that commitment to each other. We loved knowing that the other person would always be there for us. And we loved just all of the intimacy of marriage. That all those things that you don't share with other people, you know, that they're just you. The deepest, you know, Bill knew me in the deepest way possible, and I knew him deeply also. And, you know, that's what makes a really, really lovely marriage. Okay, so what I decided about putting his picture on here, I cut it down so it's kind of like a cameo. See, wasn't he a handsome man? And I'm going to, I think, use a bit of this music as sort of a frame for it. We'll see. We'll see how that works, if that looks good or not. I'm hoping that it will. Okay, why are we not lining up here? Okay, this has to line up. Right. What is this part? It has to line up with that. Okay. So, but I want the music to be right with the oval. This punch is just put together kind of weird, the way that it works. Okay, there we go. Okay. We'll see how that works. Okay, so I think I want this part right here. Okay, so I'm going to distress it. So what are the things in your marriage that you think really work, and that, you know, you think that somebody else could duplicate? I'd love it if you share those in the comments below, because, you know, these days we can use all the encouragement we can get with our marriages. You know, they say marriage is under attack, and I think that a lot of us feel that. And so if we can share with and help each other, that would be great. Okay, so this is going to be centered. Like, I think that looks pretty cool. Okay, now I was going to sew that on, but I'm running out of thread. So I think I'm going to glue it on, and then after I sew all the way around, if I still have enough thread, I can sew it on. I'm going to just make this really thin on here. There we go. Okay, so that's kind of how the little cameo thing looks, like that. And then I'm going to center it on this lace here. And see how I didn't bring the lace all the way over to the side? I didn't want to cover up that music. It comes almost all the way over to this edge. I actually meant for it to come over here to this edge, but I think it looks fine that way. You know what? I think I do need to sew that part on, and I think I have enough thread. Let's hope. I am seriously getting low, but hopefully there will be enough. Okay, so I'm going to turn it really slow because it's kind of hard to zigzag around something that's curved. I'm going to start close to the bottom because that's where I'd rather have my threads hanging. Not that slow. That's a little ridiculous. We can speed it up a bit. There we go. One thing, this didn't have to do with Bill and me, but some of my Catholic friends have said some very interesting things about marriage, and I think that this is, you know, kind of a devout Catholic thing. But I think it's something that those of us who are Protestants could really learn from. You know, I was saying that I had prayed and asked God if he wanted me to stay single, but that hadn't been how I had originally approached it. And I really believe in praying about everything. But you know, it's like we Protestants tend to look at, like, do I want to get married? Well, of course, everybody wants to get married. It's kind of like there's something wrong with you if you don't get married. And Catholics, from what my friends tell me, now I'm going to sew all the way around the edge of this. Catholics, from what my friends tell me, pray and, oops, it came unthreaded. And they're supposed to pray about whether God wants them to get married or not. Not just assume it and look for somebody, but pray and ask God whether they should be married or whether they should commit to a life of chastity. Which, that's not something that Protestants pray about. God, do you want me to live a life of chastity? You know, which basically means, you know, joining a religious order for them. Oh, shoot. Okay, hopefully we'll have enough to make it all the way around. But for them, they consider it a vocation, and it's a holy vocation. It's a sacrament. Whether you stay single and join, you know, a religious order, or whether you're married, that's a sacrament. You're being set apart for something really holy, and your marriage is very holy. And I just really am impressed with, and I love that. And I think that's one of the things that they're right about, very right about, is that we shouldn't just assume that we should be married, but we should ask God what He wants for us. And I think that He gives us the desires of our heart. That doesn't mean that He gives us whatever we want. It means that He puts the desires in our heart for what He wants. Sometimes it's not what we want at first, but He's able to change our hearts. Okay, we made it all the way around. Sorry about all that beeping. That was it telling me that my thread was running out. Okay, so I just want to trim some of these threads a little bit. I'm not going to trim them very much. I want those threads hanging out. I just didn't want any long ones. Okay, so that's what I have right here. So this is kind of my memorial thing to Bill. Okay, so we need something up here, and what I thought I would use is, oh, I still also want to add buttons. Okay, since he was a sweater maker, he had a lot of buttons, and he had, you know, pretty much stopped making sweaters just a few months before he died. May actually was when we closed our shop up in Tellico Plains, and so he gave me his buttons and, you know, wanted me to use his yarns and stuff. So I think I'm going to put some of his buttons here, because that was like, that was a fun thing, because I've always loved buttons, and so to marry a man who literally owns thousands of buttons was pretty fun. Okay, so I'm going to put some of this glue on here. I'm putting quite a bit of the glue. It will dry clear and not, you know, like super shiny clear, so that you see it. It just dries really nicely, and it holds really well. This glue, everything that I've used it on, it has held really, really well. I have used it on metal. I haven't used it on glass, so I don't know if it works for glass, but it works for beads, it works for fabric, paper, you know, anything that I've used it for. It's just really, really good. And it dries fairly quickly, but not so quickly that you don't have time to, you know, adjust things. Which side do I want that? So you do have time to move things if you need to. Okay, I think the buttons really add to it, don't you? Okay, so I'm going to use some of his yarn. He used natural fibers. This was the one exception, and I don't know if he ever actually made anything with this yarn, but he had it, and I found it one time, and I asked him about it, and he said it's linen and rayon. So it's super, super soft, and then it's got that shiny stuff that's kind of wrapped around the linen, which is the rayon. So I really like using this, and, you know, he had encouraged me to use as much as possible of the yarn, because it's like he had literally tons of yarn and wasn't going to be knitting anymore, and so I had started using it, but this was by far the one that I used the most. I want to make it pretty thick here. How long is this? It's about here. Okay. Yeah. Not sure what else to say about him. There's so much to say about him, about our marriage. He had been back in the 60s. Now remember, he was 20 years older than me. He had been a bank manager. Oh, there's my hole punch. You know what? Let's give ourselves a bigger hole here. That would be nice. He had been a bank manager and had actually, in a holdup, had a gun held to his head. And then, I don't know how soon after that he quit. I had recorded him telling a lot of his stories from his life, but that was not one of them. But I'm going to do something on the back of this. I'm not sure what. And I don't know if I'll do a video of it or not. I may just, put some paper on the back, some design paper or something. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and distress it. From there, he went to selling fibers and stuff and yarns and things. And then he met Perry Ellis, and that was how he and Beth ended up starting their knitting company. So it's kind of a long story, and we don't have time for it right now, but because we're almost done. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do is, I've wrapped this into a big, huge loop. Okay, I'm going to take it and kind of twist it a little bit just to make it easier to push through that hole. Okay, so I'm going to push it from the back through the hole. Come on. Okay, and then once it's through, then I'm going to find my loop again. Okay, right there. Oops, I'm missing some of it right here. Let's get that whole loop. Okay, and then I'm going to put this other end through that loop to make a slip knot, basically. Okay, and pull it through like this. There we go. And then I'm going to just trim the top so that we don't have the loop. I'm going to trim it this way. I don't want the top to be all even. I want them to be all different sizes there. And there's some here too. Okay, so anyway, I think that's it. Since it's a bookmark, it's okay to have, the buttons on it because you can pull it out. If you've got it in a journal, you can pull it out before you're writing, so it's not going to mess with the pages or anything. But I think that looks really cool, and that'll be really nice for me to have in my Bible and always have his picture. That'll be really nice. So anyway, I love you all, and I hope that you enjoyed this little tutorial, and I'd love to see your pictures of these. I know you can't post them on YouTube, but if you post them on Facebook, maybe put the link or something below on YouTube, because I would really like to see what you all do with it. All right, I love you all. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.